Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cantor Jana Schachter. I am the Director of Religious Services at Lionsgate, the retirement community where Richard and Helene have been living for the past almost year now. At Jewish funerals, it's traditional to recite psalms, ancient prayers that give voice to the sorrow, hope, and the mystery of life and death. For generations, Jews have turned to these words to express what's in the heart when ordinary language falls short. We recite them not only for comfort, but as a way to honor the soul of the one we've lost. They are a gift of prayer we offer on their journey. One of the most familiar and cherished psalms is Psalm 23. I will first chant it in Hebrew, and then you are welcome to join me in the English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echzor, binoteshe yarbitzini, amei menuchon yenachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek, Leman Shemo, Gam Ki Elech, Begeit Samavet, Lo Irara, Ki Ata Imadi, Shivtecha Umishantecha, Hema Yenachamuni, Taruch lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, dishanta v'Hashem en roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti Bevit Adonai leorech yamim. Please join me if you know the words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Richard Ivan Lees was born in Philadelphia on August 13th, 1936, the older son of Jules and Betty Lees. Growing up, Richard was particularly close to his mother Betty and protective of his younger brother Matthew of blessed memory. Richard was also blessed to have made a lifelong friend, Marvin, who is here with us today, while they were still in the womb. Their mothers were pregnant together. After Richard's graduation from Central High School, Class 201, he went off to college at Indiana University to study business administration. Why Indiana? It was his mother's, Betty's, home state, and she would often take Richard home for holidays when he was growing up. Their train rides to Indiana were highlights of his childhood. Richard pretended to be 5 years old, but big for my age, for as long as he could in order to ride for free. During college, he was in ROTC and became a member of ZBT Zeta Beta Tau. But the real highlight of his college years didn't even occur in the state of Indiana. In the summer of 1956, he met the love of his life, Helene, here in New Jersey, down the shore. They knew after their first date, a long walk in Beach Haven, they would be together forever, despite their 4-year age difference and the fact that they were living in different states. After graduation, Helene and Richard married, and the couple moved to California, where Richard was stationed. Despite rising to the rank of captain, the Lees told me that although Richard loved being a soldier, he wasn't great at it. He was not someone who liked following rules and taking orders. I heard stories of him sneaking around, listening to his transistor radio when he wasn't supposed to be, and one instance where he helped himself to some cake in the mess hall that was meant for someone else's special occasion. After California, Richard and Helene moved with their oldest son, Michael, to Willingboro, New Jersey, where they lived for 10 years and had 3 more children, Susan of blessed memory, Joshua, and Allison. Family time was extremely important to Richard. Every Friday night when the kids were young, they went to Howard Johnson's for all-you-can-eat fish fry, where kids ate for just 99 cents. Saturdays were spent with the kids while Helene had time for herself. Richard's children remember fondly of their Saturday trips to Beach Haven in the summer, where both sets of grandparents had houses. Richard didn't just love being with his family, which he was until his very last breath. He loved being around people. I learned he only retired from his job at Metro Signs 2 years ago because he just really loved engaging with his clients and building relationships with them. Richard was the rare person who would comfortably contact an old friend or relative after not having spoken for years, holding no grudge. I got a sense of Richard's outgoing personality during his time at Lionsgate. Helene and Richard moved into the independent living community at Lionsgate 9 months ago after 52 years of living in Cherry Hill. The couple became a regular fixture in the community, as is evidenced by the number of residents present here today. They earned the nicknames Queen Helene and King Richard from one employee. And another coworker told me I would be remiss if I didn't mention Richard's iconic mustache in this eulogy. Just the other day, a Lionsgate resident told me, when hearing of Richard's passing, how much they admired him for making an effort to get out and about as often as he did, even as it was becoming more difficult for him to move around. Richard's outgoing confidence was a perfect match to Helene's more reserved, or as she referred to herself, her more serious nature. Helene said about their relationship, "I would keep him tethered and he would make me laugh." Their marriage reminds me of this week's Torah portion, Bereshit, the first in the Torah, where we read of the marriage between Adam and Eve. The Torah tells us, after humans were created, "It is not good for a person to be alone. I will make a fitting partner for them." From the very beginning, the Torah teaches that human beings are meant for companionship, for balance, partnership, love. Adam and Eve were in many ways opposites, one drawn from the earth, the other bringing spirit and breath, each completing what the other lacked. And together they became, as Torah says, one flesh, a union that gave creation its fullness. So too were Richard and Helene's a living reflection of that first partnership. They were different in temperament and in outlook, one perhaps more outgoing, the other more reserved, yet their differences were the source of their strength. Where one brought warmth, the other brought calm. Where one led with feeling, the other with thought. Together they created harmony. Their marriage was a sacred meeting of opposites, a living example of how love, in all its beautiful contrasts, can make two souls into one whole. And that same spirit of connection that shaped their marriage also defined Richard's life. He loved people, drew them close, and filled every gathering with light, laughter, and friendship. His life was a blessing, his love a reflection of the divine image in which we were all created. And his memory will continue to shine in the hearts of all who are lucky enough to know him. Richard is mourned by his wife, Helene, his children, Michael and Sarah, the late Susan, Josh and Patricia, and Allison, by his grandchildren, Julia and Christian, Catherine, Jack, Samuel, and Leo, and by his great-granddaughter, Jory. May his memory be a blessing for you all. I now like to call up family members and friends to speak. I believe we're starting with Marvin.
I was asked to speak first because I knew Richard longer than anybody else. Richard was the brother that I never had. He was my oldest living friend, and I his. This is a picture of Richard and I and our mothers, and I think we're maybe 2 years old or something. And we've had this for a long time. And if I would have died first, Richard would have said the same things that I'm saying about him, I think. Born 3 months apart and lived across the street from each other. We were pals from the very beginning. We shared secrets and were always available to each other. Growing up, we went to House School Elementary, Wagner Junior High, Central High, until graduation. Not to mention Lerbour Khan, a communist Yiddish school that we went to before we started school. And then, of course, when we found out that it was a communist stronghold, we left that particular school. Richard wanted to do a house school reunion and always was looking at the school pictures and trying to remember who all the people were that we were in school with. Richard called me Catsy. We talked a lot and had a wire connected to cans across our street for secret code messages. At an early age, we loved the movies and went every Saturday, and were very independent and went all over alone. When Richard and his family went to Beach Haven for the summer, I was really lonesome. Years flew and Richard married Helene and I, Myrna. We had families and always kept in touch. We celebrated holidays, dinners, vacations. Not only did we love Richard, but his family also. I spoke to Richard every day, even at the end. He called me and I called him. I have a great void in my life now, and I'll always miss him as my brother. At the hospital, I gave him a kiss, told him to sleep well, and have a good trip to heaven with all my love. I'll think of Richard every day, and when the phone rings and when I pick it up and there's nobody there, I think, oh, it's Richard calling to tell me some bullshit. We'll all miss him. Thank you. Okay.
Well, compared with Marvin, we're like newbies. We've only known Richard and Helene for close to 50 years, soon after we had settled in Cherry Hill. Without a blood connection, we became and our family. Richard is Uncle Richard to our two sons, Jared and Aaron. Furthermore, he is Aaron's godfather. When Aaron and Jared were younger, Richard was also like a grandfather to them, as our parents were hundreds of miles away in Massachusetts. He gave our sons wonderful experiences in Cherry Hill and on summer visits to Long Beach Island, and they are now sustained by very cherished memories. Over 5 decades, we celebrated numerous happy occasions and mitzvot, as well as a few difficult times. We had many, many holiday meals on Downs Drive and at our home. At Passover, Seders could get a bit off track with Richard. He did love his Manischewitz wine. And I can hear him say, Fred, pour more, pour more. At the opposite end of the table, Helene, like the sergeant at arms, would have to remind him to begin conducting the actual Seder, or at times nudge him gently to the service when his commentaries went astray. Richard was a schmoozer. It's hard to talk about him in the past tense. Richard is a schmoozer. He always had a few jokes to tell. Some could even be off color. I won't even mention what were some of his last words to the nurses at Cooper. Be aware. I'm warning you up there. By the way, he may use the name Riccardo Bonafuccio, so don't be fooled. It is our Richard. On both 15th Street and 9th Street in Beach Haven, he was like the mayor of the neighborhood. He loved to sit on the porch and chat with anyone walking or biking along the sidewalk. He actually ran for mayor of Cherry Hill. I saw Harry Platt here. I apologize if he ran against your father, Bernie. Richard was certainly a character, a good-natured, warm-hearted character. Everyone here has a Richard story or two. He was always so happy-go-lucky, never complaining, and enjoyed what life brought his way. Whether they are his clients, the clerk at the Woodcrest post office, the dry cleaners, or the manicurist at his local nail shop. You mention Richard's name and it elicits a big smile. If God happens to be a woman, especially with ample breasts, I wish her well when she meets our Richard. Fortunately, Richard did not have to have a long, enduring suffering. We all, Jared, Naren as well, wish Helene, Michael, Josh, Allison, Trish, Sarah, Julia, Christian, Jack, Leo, Sam, and Katie much strength. Although Jory was able to spend only limited time with Richard, he will have to hear all your heartfelt stories about his car. May Richard's memory be for a blessing.
Hello, I'm Michael's daughter, Julia, and Dadushka's oldest grandchild, the one that made him a grandfather. I'm also the only one that calls him Dadushka. I guess no one else could either remember it or pronounce it, so when the other grandchildren came along, he became Ka. But I'll admit that I also can't spell Dadushka, so luckily I had that nickname that I could always address letters to him as Ka, so thank you. I had a bit of a different relationship with Ka in that we saw him mostly on holidays because we always lived further away, first in Maryland and now in Vermont. But I have many special memories of Dadushka that I keep holding with me. I wanted to tell two stories actually from my childhood that both have to do with jelly. One is that when I was in elementary school, every Grandparents' Day, Bubby and Dadushka would come and visit, and they always brought the same treat, which was a jelly-filled donut. And because of that, I always associate jelly donuts with Dadushka and how he showed his love for me by making the time to come and always remembering that special treat as our special connection. The other jelly-related memory is actually about jellyfish. When we were at Beach Haven as a kid, when we still had a house there, a couple times, I actually don't remember how often this happened. It could have been once, it could have been 10 times, I don't know. Bubby and I would come back from the beach when there were a lot of jellyfish in the water. And on those days, right when we would get back, Dadushka would leave, and he wanted to go to the beach when there were all the jellyfish, or at least that's what he said. I don't know why he was going, really, if he really was going to the beach or just saying this, but he always said, oh yeah, I just bring them peanut butter and they leave me alone. Yeah, he always had a joke. Another memory that I keep close is also at Beach Haven. He was my creative muse. One of my favorite pastimes at Beach Haven was to sculpt his head out of sand. And this is maybe, in the category of more abstract art, but there always was the defining feature of the big chunk of seaweed, which was his iconic mustache. One thing that I learned recently about Dadushka, which was surprising to me maybe, but you probably all already knew this, is that he loved babies. He loved my son Jory, his first great-grandchild, and he held him so tenderly when they visited right after he was born. But even earlier this year, as Dadushka was getting older, he would be down on the floor, crawling around, playing with Jory. And so I was really grateful to get to see that side of him that I might not have gotten to see because, maybe I saw it when I was a kid, but I don't remember all of us as babies. I just got to see this. And that was why it was so important for me to get to FaceTime him with Jory before he passed. And even then, he had a big smile, "Hey, Jory," and he was so happy to see him. Anyway, these were just a few of my favorite memories that I wanted to share, but I also wanted to share the biggest advice that Dadushka often said that I carry with me and I feel like has shaped my life. And that advice is just ask. The worst thing they can say is no. And he would say all the time in all sorts of different circumstances. And I have no idea how my life would be different. All the connections or opportunities that I might have missed out on if I hadn't taken and followed his advice. It's simple, it's easy to remember, and once you've heard it, you understand that it's true. And yeah, I feel like I could give examples, but I don't know. I think I will just say nothing worse has ever happened to me. So nothing worse than a no. And then the last thing that I want to say, and I feel like this is maybe not as easy of an advice because it was something that he lived every day, but one of the things that I really respect about Dadushka is, and you've just heard from two of his long-term friends, one lifelong friend and one long-term friend, which is that he had so many friends and so many friendships, and so many of you are here as a testament to that. And I just think he really valued the people in his life, and he understood that those relationships are the most important thing in life, and he really knew how to connect with other people and how to stay connected with other people. So I hope that I can carry that with me and learn how to do it as well as he does, and that in 60 years from now, I could have as many deep friendships as he had. So I'll really hold him with me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jack. I'm Allison's son, Richard's third grandson. And so when I started writing this speech, I kind of just wrote the sentence, there isn't really a right way to start this. And then I was thinking, there could be a joke to put in there because Ka always told jokes. And I didn't have a good one to say. And then when I came to see my family this morning, Ka would always wear plaid, so I wore this shirt today to honor him. And my bubby, she told me, anytime Ka would ever see someone in a shirt like this, that he'd say, "Oh, no one's going to steal that shirt." And then you'd ask him why, and he'd say, "Since it's checked." So just one of his, wittier, stupider jokes. And so he was a pretty extraordinary man. And just like that joke, he was also very witty. He was a very sassy man, and I think I get that part of my personality from him. And he was a man who was really filled with wisdom. He made all of our lives brighter, and he filled our family with a sense of love. And so, rather than go on and on about how amazing he was in general, I just wanted to share also some small stories about ways that he deeply impacted my life. And so, growing up, it's fair to say that my brother and I didn't have it the easiest in any way, shape, or form. Our parents divorced at a young age, leaving us constantly going back and forth between different homes with different sets of rules and emotional auras and vibes. There were many times in our upbringing where really all Leo and I yearned for was just some sense of consistency and normality. And this was something that our Bubby and Ka both worked tirelessly to make happen for us, especially during the trying times when we needed it the most. Also during those times, Ka would really just always keep it light. And I think the most notable example of that was when, ever since we were young kids, he would just take us out on his front porch at night, and there would be a full moon, or the moon would be out in some form, and he'd just tell us, "Oh, the wolf is out now," and he'd just start howling at the top of his lungs, like all of Woodcrest could probably hear it. That's just one way he was, such a great, so funny. But most notably, during high school, Bubby and Ka would have Leo and I over for dinner every single Thursday. Our mom was working tirelessly, especially on Thursday nights with lots of clients, to keep my brother and I housed, clothed, and fed. And while she was working incredibly hard, our Bubby and Ka made sure that we could have dinner with some family just one extra night per week. And it meant more than the world to me, and I'm sure my brother as well. And so, while Bubby was busy cooking our meals, Ka would wait for me outside of school to pick me up after a rehearsal. I did lots of choir and theater. And many times, rehearsals they would run over, which would leave my Ka to sit waiting in the car in the Cherry Hill East parking lot for even a half an hour on some days. And other than the quick witty comment about me being 30 minutes late, which he of course always acknowledged was not my fault, he would always greet me after a long day of school and practice with a smile, which really just made my days feel very whole. And so, after a long rehearsal, which at times could be challenging, both performing-wise and friend-wise, Ka's Black Honda was really my safe haven. His constant willingness to be there for me and Leo, even if it just meant picking us up once a week to ensure that we had a fun and delicious meal with family. It may have seemed small to him, but to my adolescent self, it meant the world. This behavior is just one example of the many ways Ka showed his love to everyone in our family, just by being there when we needed him. In addition to his constant willingness to just be there and take care of us, Ka was always someone who would make me feel like I could take on just about anything. As I was deciding between going into performing arts or engineering, I'm now an engineer and I think I made the right decision. I remember he would always tell me to just follow my heart and not care about what other people thought or said. And he always said this about everything. He didn't know at the time, but hearing those words from him helped me keep my head up and continue to stay strong, even today, as I navigate life's difficulties. And at times when I was younger and emotionally overwhelmed, and still to this day in those moments, I can hear him in my head saying, who cares? Just be happy. And he's really someone who staunchly supported me in everything that I did in my life. He attended all of my performances, whether it was choir, theater, sometimes really, really bad college a cappella. He was at all of my graduations, and he also would even come to watch me play sports. And for those of you who don't really know me, I'm probably one of the least athletic people you could ever possibly meet when it comes to hand-eye coordination. I'm really only good at skiing, thanks to my Uncle Michael. And even though I was so bad at ball sports, he still came to all of my basketball games in 4th and 5th grade and just watched me absolutely suck. And so I will carry his legacy of love, kindness, humor, and sass while living lightly and proudly with me for the rest of my life. And I can only hope that someday I can provide for someone else the type of unconditional love and support he provided me, whether it be my own children, students, or any nieces, nephews, cousins. Hi, Jory. And to everyone in our immediate family, while I know that this is incredibly difficult and painful with Ka, our amazing Ka now gone, I'm also positive that the love he instilled in all of us as a family will continue to live on through us all for the rest of our lives. Thank you.
There's a lot of people here. My mom said, she leaned over, she said, he'd go, wow, look how many people are here. So this first thing that I'm going to read is actually written by Sam. Sam was second grandson? Second grandson. So I always get the orders wrong. Okay. So this is from Sam. For Sam, Ka was the heartbeat of family dinners. Every occasion spent at Bubby and Ka's would start the same way. Ka would hear the door open and shuffle on over. We'd walk in and he'd greet us with a big smile. He always said, Sam, Sam, Sam. How you doing, Sam? You could tell that was his voice, right? Yeah, when if you know how he spoke, that's how he spoke. Sam always loved how he said his name like that. Family dinners were always special to Sam because that's where some of his best memories with Ka came from. It didn't take Ka long to make Sam's assigned seat at dinner next to him. He also decided that he needed to give Sam a job at dinners. Ka told Sam that his job was to make sure that Ka's glass always had water in it, and to make sure that Sam filled all the other glasses around him as well. If Ka's glass was empty, he'd let Sam know, and this job, as silly as it may seem, meant so much to Sam. It made Sam feel important at these dinners, and Sam will always remember it. Another story Sam wants to share is about something Ka said to him one Passover. Ka would hide the afikomen for all of the cousins to find, and Ka gave, $5 or whatever to whoever found it first. And after years and years of not finding it first, Sam started to get upset. So this one Passover, Ka noticed that Sam was frustrated, and he knew Sam wanted to find it first. So before they left dinner, Ka told Sam that he wanted to show him something in his office. So he took him into his office. He was at his desk, and he told Sam, Sam, don't be upset about losing, because there'll always be next year for another chance. And then he handed him $5 with a big smile and said, don't tell anyone about the money, and you better behave, boy. Sam does feel like that night taught him to be a better winner and loser. It was definitely a Passover he'll never forget. There are so many stories and memories of Ka to tell, but Sam wants to end this with how he'll remember Ka. He'll remember him for always being unapologetically himself. You knew what he liked and what he didn't like. He told his jokes, regardless if it was the right time or the right place. He spoke his mind, appropriate or not. Sam loved that about him. Ka always found a way to put a smile on our faces and make us laugh. Sam truly thinks it's special how many people came today to celebrate Ka's life. He meant a lot to all of us, and we're all going to miss him deeply. But Sam hopes we can carry his love and laughter with us in the moments that we share together moving forward. It's beautiful, Sam. Thank you all for being here. So, not many of you know this. When my dad was born, he weighed 10 pounds. 5 of those pounds were his testicles. So the doctors and the nurses and my grandmother, they all looked around, and it was clear to everyone in that moment that he was half nuts. I hope I made you proud, Daddy. When I was 17 years old, my dad made me promise that when I was at his funeral, I would tell a joke. That was the joke. It wasn't true. I don't know how much his testicles weighed. Okay, here we go. Yes, and he was nuts. He was, in the best possible ways. So nuts. Oh, yeah, I said that part. Okay. My dad had these long gorilla arms and short legs. His broad shoulders showcased his strength, a strength matched by his strong grip and powerful handshake. But it was his heart that was the strongest part of him. And he was my rock. He was the one man in my entire life that I could always count on. And I counted on him a lot. After a good cry in his loving arms, by the way, he was the best hugger. He would say to me, "You know I love you, and I'm always in your corner." Every card or letter I ever wrote him closed with, "Thank you for always being in my corner. XOXO, Allison." My dad was kind and generous and funny, and like everyone else said, sometimes inappropriately, a lot of times inappropriately. But whatever words he said and whatever ways he said them, I knew he meant no harm, and I knew that he loved me. And he loved my mom. My dad was absolutely devoted to my mother. He loved her so much. When they would come home from somewhere on a Saturday night, I'd ask, "Did you have a good time?" And my dad would say, oh yes, and your mother was the most beautiful woman in the room." He was supportive of her in every way, and he was so happy that they were together. In fact, my mom just shared with me a little while ago that he said to her, "I'm so glad that I married someone so smart." But my dad was smart too, in his own way. And he taught me some very valuable life lessons. One, it doesn't matter what kind of car you drive as long as it gets you from point A to point B. It doesn't matter how big your house is, you can only be in one room at a time. Julia, always ask. The worst someone can say is no. I love that one too. He'd say, "Oh, Al, come on, don't get so stressed out by the bullshit." And it's all bullshit. He taught me how to forgive. He taught me how to be generous. He taught me to meet people where they are and don't judge. He taught me how important it is to laugh and to bring laughter to others. Every day I make it a point to make at least one person laugh. That's my goal every day. He encouraged me and he gave me room to take risks, sometimes too much room. But if I messed up, and man, I messed up, he was there in my corner to help me through. He made me strong, strength I never knew I had actually until this past week. And he showed me how to move through the world with kindness, humor, and love. I was so lucky to be holding his hand when he took his last breath. He was surrounded by me and my mom and my brothers, and the experience was terribly sad and very painful. But it was also so beautiful and so peaceful. And we can hold space for all of those things at the same time. Our hearts broke deeper than ever before, and I know that every one of us here has suffered from deep pain and loss during the course of your lives. When we come to a place like this, it reminds us of all the losses that we've had in our life. So my heart goes out to all of you, especially to my mom. And I wish for you what my dad would wish for me, to be compassionate towards others and to yourself, to see the humor in things, to be generous with your time and attention, to live your life with authenticity, a sense of adventure, and most of all, to love deeply and fully. Thank you.
We'll continue with our concluding prayers. We begin with El Malay Rachamim, the traditional prayer recited over the soul of the deceased. Please rise as you are able. El Malei Rachamim, Shochim Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim, Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim, and Ishman Yitzchak Shehalach Leolamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Ana Barachamim Hastirehu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim Utzror Utzror Mitzror HaChaim En Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Richard Lees, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, please remain standing as we recite the Kaddish, the traditional prayer of mourning. Yit gadal vit kadash shemei rabah, belma divarach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabah mevarach leolam olamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'shabach v'pa'ar v'tramam v'naseh v'tadar v'taleh v'talal shemei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran belma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya v'chaim alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May Richard's memory be a blessing. Okay. The family would like to invite all guests for lunch at Aldo Lamberti's on Route 70 in Cherry Hill. Directions are available if you need them. What was that?